Well, for more on this, we're joined by the Soul City Institute CEO, Phinah Kodisang. Phinah, good evening. Thanks for your time. I suppose no surprise then seeing the amount of frustration, anger in the room, particularly from civil society. We know that these are the organizations that are often the first responders that have to walk the journey with survivors, with victims, with families. And so they really take on a lot of the frustrations that exist when it comes to the justice system and overall dealing with gender-based violence.
Yeah, and you know, when the mandate is not funded, Kathy, it's not a mandate at all, because what gives that mandate legitimacy is the resources behind the mandate. So it is frustrating that civil society has to do a lot of work and carry, you know, and hold the space for victims of gender-based violence, but they don't have resources. Some of them have to take from their own pockets to really help, because they are the only source of assistance in their communities. So I understand the frustration in the room, and, you know, as an organization that is funded to do some of the work, you know, we know that even the funding we have is not enough for us to do everything that is on the agenda or even on the business plan that we have put forward to address gender-based violence.
Let's unpack this issue that you're raising of an unfunded mandate, because it really speaks to the allocation of resources, not limited to a state lens, but also a private sector, and the commitments that have been made by the private sector that have simply not been forthcoming.
Yeah, and, you know, in private sector is supposed to come to the table. And I didn't even see anyone today speak on behalf of private sector in terms of just re-emphasizing or reinforcing the commitment that private sector is making to fund the fight against gender-based violence. So we then sit with, you know, money that is committed, because remember, pledges were made and the president spoke about a lot of money. I think it was 140 million, 160 million that was set aside. But in reality, that money is not available. It's money that, you know, was supposed to have been collected from private sector, from different government departments, and then distributed. And so far, what we know is that 112 organizations, including Soul City, have received that funding. But I can tell you, Kathy, it's 250,000 that is given to a CBO to be able to do prevention work. And you can do the maths, you know. It doesn't carry the work.
The president, of course, today emphasized the need then for the allocations that he has previously spoken about to directly come out of Treasury's pocket. Because what we've seen traditionally is that there's a reallocation of resources within departmental budgets, and it's very difficult to actually track down where the money is going and if in fact it's, you know, contributing towards programs specifically linked at improving the response then to gender-based violence. How different do you think what the president announced today will be?
I don't think it will be different. We are yet to see if anything changes, because the sad thing is you have departments, ministries returning money to Treasury as budgets that have not been spent, when all departments have the responsibility to mainstream gender in their work, and also to mainstream prevention of gender-based violence in their work. So if money keeps going back to Treasury and people have to reapply for that funding and they don't get the same allocation, it tells you that either we don't know what we are doing, departments don't know what they are doing in terms of prevention. If they do, then what are they doing that will not, you know, make sure that that money that is allocated is spent in the period that they need to spend it, so that we don't take any money back to Treasury and then struggle to get it reallocated into the different departments. So that's what we need to look at. What is it that we are not able to do? Because then we need to look at what are the gaps for us to be able to say, maybe then we need to train people, because I tell you, Every year there's money that goes back to Treasury, yet there's still a lot of work to do to prevent, to respond, to even litigate in terms of gender-based violence.
The issue of a gender-based violence commission and the fact that it has not been properly constituted to date also being a big talking point in the room today.
Yeah, and you wonder why we still struggle to have, that council. Why are we not able to put a council together? Because our government demonstrated at the time of COVID how easy it is. And I'm saying easy because we saw them pulling all ministers, all deputy ministers. Everybody was pulled in to give us a response in terms of how are we dealing with gender-based violence. There were meetings, there were family meetings that we were holding, because we were dealing with a pandemic. Now that we've dealt with that pandemic, the biggest pandemic that we still have is gender-based violence, but we don't see the same energy, the same effort that we saw with coronavirus being put. And so it's a question mark in terms of where is then that commitment, that political will, that, bold leadership that we saw when COVID hit all of us. And now, everyone knows that when COVID comes, you must wear masks, you must sanitize. These are the things, we knew all the steps. But with gender-based violence, I don't see that commitment. Mm-hmm. And it's even, a sad reality because the numbers keep going up, and you see numbers now projected as if we are doing something well because we are showing a decline, yet that's not a true reflection, because what we have lost is the confidence in the system, and that's why women no longer go and report.
Soul City Institute CEO Phinah Kodisang will leave it there for tonight.